What is up, all? Spawn of Possession, Incurso, and this album came out in 2012 on Relapse Records. Spawn of Possession are a 5-piece from Sweden, and they play technical, brutal death metal. And I had to look up Incurso because I did not know what that meant, and in Latin, it means attack. And when it comes to technical, brutal death metal bands, and I'm a very hard person to please. I mean, oftentimes a lot of bands, it just doesn't mesh well, and I'm not getting what I want from a metal record at all with a lot of these bands and a lot of these records within this genre. But I found this album to be extremely acrobatic. There is a ton of things to unravel, and just the shower of guitar patterns that are just thrown at you just keeps me very, very in tune with what's going on within this record. And this record, it's put together very much like a jazz record, and it sounds very improvised at times. Instruments are going off into different directions, doing very inventive type things with their instruments, but they always come right back together for the attack at hand. And when they do come together, it's absolutely devastatingly brutal. Guitars have a very harmonic, high-pitched sound to them at most times, and drums are constantly keeping momentum, even within the slower parts. There's that double bass just drilling along, just keeping the momentum just at a blistering speed. And the bass has a hugely jazz feel to it. The bassist reminds me a lot of Jacob Astarias, a famous jazz bass player. And I hope I said his name correctly. It's just a tough one for me. But that combined with the vocalists, deep growls, but it's higher up in the mix, so it's not just flooded by all this music that's being played. And a good example of a track that this all works very, very well with is with Bodiless Sleeper, which starts out with symphonic instruments. There's a ton of harmonics coming from the guitars, and it just builds into these crushing guitar riffs. Even when the music does dive down into a death metal breakdown, it's absolutely just crushing sounding. And this track alone is just one of the many examples of standout tracks on this record. Each and every track has something about it that makes it stand out. But this track, especially for those just absolutely brutal breakdowns, just has my jaw just dropping, drooling all over my shirt. Just amazing, amazing music. But another interesting track I want to point out is the closing track, entitled Apparition. And this track is rich with symphonic death metal. I would even go as far to say that it's equal parts symphonic and brutal death metal. But it's interesting how they play it out, because the two genres coincide with each other rather than, playing alongside each other. They're playing as a single unit. You have symphonic metal playing with death metal for this amazing orchestration of this closing track. At times it just sounds like there's a chorus playing behind the band, and it's just creating this very almost biblical sound. I picture a man on a mountain praying to God, praying to his God when there's just this wicked storm of brewing in the ocean, and waves are just crashing into each other. It almost feels like the man on the mountain is going to be swept away and dealt with. But this album is amazing. Sincerely, there's so much to devour within a single track. It's going to take you a while. I mean, if you're like me and you like to just pick things apart, within a single track, there's a lot to break down, and you get that throughout every single track on this record. This is an amazing band, and this is my intro to this band. I don't own any of their older material whatsoever. This is it. So I'm definitely gonna go back, listen to some of their older stuff, and get more involved with their earlier sound as well. So I highly recommend peeping this out if you're into, very complex, technical, brutal death metal, or just very complex music in general, or even if you're a fan of jazz music and you just don't, you're not into metal whatsoever, or have no respect for metal whatsoever. I think that this album may, change your opinion about metal. So definitely peep this out. It's Spawn of Possession, Incurso, and this album came out in 2012 on Relapse Records. Thank you guys for watching. Thank you guys for subscribing, and I'll see you guys next time.